What's up, guys? This is Adam from Properly Wound, back at you with another review. And today we are discussing a pretty polarizing watch. It's kind of a love it or hate it. This is the Panerai Luminor. In particular, the model we have here is the PAM 01000, also known as the PAM 1000, or the Base Luminor that you'll find in the 2017 Panerai catalog. So there are a couple of Panerais that have come before this, known as the base models, the predecessors that are, we'll kind of get to that because some of the purists don't really like this new base model, as they believe Panerai has been cutting corners a little bit, which I actually kind of tend to agree with, but we'll get there in a little bit. So I got this watch a little while ago. As you guys may have seen, I had a Panerai Radiomir previously, earlier this year, I think back in January or March of 2017. I traded that for another watch, funded it for some other pieces, and decided I would go with the standard Luminor. This is the watch one of the first watches that was ever technically kind of one of my grails. When I first got into watches, Breitling, Navitimers, and Panerais were some of the watches that I saw that I was just like, wow, blown away, and had to have one, especially seeing one in the store. At a local tourneau, seeing the huge polished cases really just had me awestruck at the beautiful finish and whatnot. It's kind of my first foray into real watches, and seeing that big shiny thing in the case really made me want one. Anyways, so we'll talk about some specifications really quickly since they're pretty basic. We'll kind of get those out of the way. So this is the Panerai Luminor, like I said, PAM 1000, we'll call it. It has the OP1 caliber logo, which is a manual wound, basically Unitas, old school pocket watch style movement. It has a power reserve of 56 hours, and it has it only beats at 21,000 beats per minute, or 21,600, I think it is. But you don't really need anything more, especially for this, because this is a simple two-hander. That's right, they have other ones that have sub-seconds hands, but this is as base model as it comes. Two-hander with just the Luminor logo, Panerai, and the OP logo, which is right under Panerai, which stands for Officine Panerai. So this is the typical 44 millimeter case. Thickness, I'm actually not too sure. I think it's probably about a 13 or 14 millimeter thickness, but it actually doesn't feel super thick on the wrist. It's definitely thicker than the Radiomir, but for some reason it doesn't wear for me as large as the Radiomir because the dial is a little bit smaller. The Radiomir dial kind of makes it feel a little bit like a dinner plate. It's 24 millimeter lugs. This is the standard leather that comes on the Panerai, and I have to admit that this leather is absolutely phenomenal. So has a Panerai signed buckle as well. One of the cool things about Panerai is, at least they claim, and I totally believe this, that their straps go through these water resistance tests, and the Panerai straps are much more water resistant than a lot of other manufacturers' straps, as they should be, since this is, you know, originally a dive watch, and is a dive watch today as well. One of the things I wanted to note is the Unitas movement in this watch. So Panerai has some other in-house calibers available now. They have a very similar one to this, I believe called the PAM 560, which has the 8-day power reserve in-house Panerai movement in it. And for me, that's not really a big deal, because to me, when you're buying a Panerai, you're buying for the case and the dial, right? So, and it's kind of more accurate to history, because back in the day when Panerai used to be Panerai was contracted for the Italian Navy, they used Rolex movements in the watches. So to me, this is the, you know, technically an ultimate tool watch. So the fact that there is a Unitas movement in this and not an in-house movement is totally okay with me. Some people might argue that the price is a little bit too high for these base model Luminors. I think the The retail price is north of $4,000 for these guys, which is a little bit hefty considering you have a two-hander with no complications and a basic pocket watch movement in it. But you know, I think when you're buying a Panerai, you sort of you're settling on the fact that you're buying a true tool watch with history rather than you know, a beautiful decorated JLC movement on a reverso, or you know, a master control, or some type of German watch, some type of Nomos or something like that. So this is really a tool watch in the truest sense of the word. So and of course it has that beautiful crown guard, where I think it's a pretty badass thing to have on a watch, and it makes the Panerai Luminor unique. So overall, there's not too much to say that you can't see about the case here. It has a highly polished case, slightly brushed on the sides there, but it's pretty much an all polished in-your-face type case, with a pretty standard case back. And all Panerais that are made are always limited. So this one is limited to 1500, but it's by no means a limited edition. It's just the amount of PAM 1000s they made for the calendar year. It has a sausage dial as opposed to a sandwich dial. So a sandwich dial has sort of imagine a giant layer of lume and then a black dial placed on top of it with cutouts for the lume markings and the 12369. If you guys just Google sandwich dial versus sausage dial, you'll be able to see the differences there. It's not super noticeable unless you're looking at the dial really, really closely, but it is something that's very distinguishable amongst Paneristi enthusiasts. So earlier I mentioned that this PAM 1000 is sort of frowned upon almost in a way amongst the true Panerai enthusiasts. And there's a couple of reasons for that. So first and foremost, what Panerai did is, so the original PAM 000 or the PAM 000 is kind of like the OG base model Panerai. So what that had, so we're going to use that as sort of the golden standard in this comparison. So the PAM 000 had screw-in links as opposed to pop-in spring bars. So I do appreciate that there are lug holes, so it's easy to do a strap change, but a lot of purists will argue that it lost some of its charm since it doesn't have the screw-in spring bars. And that's basically a tiny little screw on this end and a long tube on this end for strap changes. But to be honest, I don't really care. I'm totally okay with these spring bars. It makes it super easy to change the strap on the fly, since I do have like about 12 straps for this watch. Another thing that Panerai enthusiasts will sort of dwell on is the fact that this doesn't have a screw down case back anymore. Unfortunately, this is a screw down case, or this is a snap-on case back, which I actually tend to dislike because that also brings the water resistance of this guy down to about 100 meters, as opposed to the original PAM 000 base model, which had a water resistance of about 300 meters, which for the purists, I can totally understand why they'd be disappointed in Panerai, because to be honest, it really truly is just a cost-cutting measure. So between the spring bar changes, the snap-on case back, and the water resistance, I can sort of see how this is a kind of a dumbed down version of a base model in a way for Panerai to cut corners. But you know what? To be honest, I mean, as much as I'd rather have a Panerai 000, I'm totally okay with having this. Even if I do go in the water, I'm probably not going to go in the water with this leather strap to begin with. Maybe if I have a rubber, I'd go in the water. And even then, it would just be, you know, at a swimming level or like a snorkeling level. So that 100-meter water resistant is going to be plenty for me. Although I totally understand the purist's point of view. Anyways, guys, so I guess we'll sort of talk about quickly how it actually feels to wear one of these guys on the wrist. I'm going to show this to you on my 7¼ inch wrist. It actually fits really well, but I can see how someone with a smaller wrist, maybe 6½ inches and under, this watch just might be a little bit too overwhelming on the wrist. So I'm trying to give you guys a little bit of distance so you can see that it actually does fit the wrist pretty well. And for some of you guys, this might actually even be way too big. But for me, I think it wears really well. And I really do love the presence of this watch. There's something to be said about strapping it onto your wrist. It does just kind of feel like a badass watch. It's big, it's bold, it has a lot of presence. So this is definitely the kind of watch that's gonna get noticed. It's big, it's bold, it's in your face. When you're walking in with short sleeves, attention is definitely going to get drawn to this. But I think that's kind of the point of this watch, is it's sort of it's kind of a large masculine, sort of modern day and age watch, which is kind of crazy considering that all these dimensions are very, very true to the original. You know, the fact that this was a tool watch also kind of makes this more attractive, and a navy tool watch sort of adds to that masculine characteristic. So who is this watch for? Honestly, I think it's either you love or hate Panerai. I don't think you can dislike Panerai and give this a shot and then decide that you're gonna love this. You have to be in love with the size. You have to be in love with the sort of simplicity of the dial. I think you have to be in love with the actual Italian history and the military history of this watch. And you're going to have to be in love with having something that's big and bold on the wrist rather than sort of small and understated. I mean, there's definitely a big difference of wearing a 40mm Submariner compared to a 44mm Panerai. I mean, even the dial, the way the 12.3 and 12.3, 6, and 9, the way they pop out at you, the way those big, thick markers, hour markers, and hands pop out at you, it's a watch that you're gonna get noticed with. So really, it's for anyone who wants to give Panerai a shot, who respects their heritage, who loves the big, bold design. So anyway, guys, let me know what you think about Panerai. Is it a brand that you hate? Is it a brand that you could try? I find that usually people are on either end of the spectrum. It's a very polarizing design. Either you love it or you hate it. Either you can pull off the 44mm plus size, or you can't. Let me know in the comments, guys, and follow us on Facebook at Properly Wound. Also follow the Instagram at Properly Wound. We have a lot of pictures and stories on there. And I will see you guys in the next review or live stream. Later.